What's up my friends, welcome back, hello if you are new. If you've not watched any of these kind of videos before, basically what I do is I talk about my favourite albums that weren't necessarily featured as an interview or an album review, something like that. And my first one is my feature favourite, so that's kind of like the top of the top. And that for me is Cerebral Rot and their album Excretion of Mortality. So this is probably one of my favourite old school death metal albums of the year so far. They bring these really memorable riffs that so often will kick your fucking ass. And like, I mean that in the best way possible. Drowned in MALODOR, for example, or MALODOR, I'm not sure which way you pronounce it. That's kind of, you know, it has those really quite catchy riffs. And in a way it reminded me of Frozen Soul. But I have to say, as much as I really love, you know, the kind of caveman simplistic riffing, there is an element of evolution that's happening in the band, which I really like. And the final track, Crowning the Disgustulent, which is an amazing title, is I think about 11 minutes long. And I think this is where, you know, Cerebral Rot are kind of pushing things out a little bit more, making things a bit more cinematic. And it proves that Cerebral Rot aren't necessarily a one-trick pony of this sort of caveman metal, which I thought was very interesting. So if you're not familiar with Scale the Summit, they're an instrumental band. And that's why I think Subjects, their new album, is such a big deal, because you get two different albums. So this is the first album where they've decided to have a full record with singers on here, and there's vocalists which range from Ross Jennings from Haken, Courtney Plant from Spiritbox, and lots of other, you know, fantastic singers. For me, Scale the Summit has always been about kind of almost relaxing, and I find that with the vocals, it doesn't quite hit that sort of same way that the instrumental kind of ones do, but I really enjoy the fact that they're trying something different, and I feel like this album is quite riffy. You know, A New Way is quite sort of, it's a bit chunkier, but then there's also kind of, you know, interesting things like Bamboo Flute, which is on the end of Jackhammer Ballet. So if you're not familiar with Delving, basically it's a one-man solo project from Nick DiSalvo, who is also in Elder. So as you can imagine, I'm probably really going to enjoy this. One of the things I liked about the kind of story of this, though, was obviously, you know, Elder touring the world all over the place. But during the pandemic, you know, Nick was kind of based just on his street. And the title refers to a stag fountain, which is apparently quite near where he lives. And it kind of is looking at the beauty and the simplicity of life, which obviously, given we were locked in, you know, for basically an entire year, you know, he was on his street and that was it. And that's kind of what's informed this album. There's, you know, like krautrock sections, psychedelic rock sections, you know, a lot of the things that you would come to expect from Elder. So if you're a fan of that sort of music, I think you'll absolutely love this one. So the first band are basically a collection of early demos, and depending on how well versed you are in the Decapitated history, this is kind of a big deal, because Vogue, who is in the band currently and is kind of the only remaining member from the original lineup, he was in the band with his brother Vitek, who is the drummer. So these are like the earliest incarnations that we can see of Decapitated. So, you know, Vitek was such a fantastic drummer. So to be able to kind of have these unreleased demos kind of come out almost feels like we've got Vitek back just, you know, like for one more time. And I think it's really interesting as well, because you can see, you know, these kids were like, what, 16 when they were writing these? And you can see the kind of potential of what these guys had even then. But this is by far, I would say, the heaviest release that Beartooth have, you know, had in a very long time. I also didn't know that Caleb writes records, performs, engineers, produces everything. Like he is the band. And it's interesting, you know, like songs like Dominate has blast beats, for example, and Fed Up is a massive highlight as well. And, you know, it's the Beartooth that we all know and love, but with a bit more added teeth, which I thought was really cool. So this band I'd never heard of before until I was chatting with Trevor from the Black Dahlia Murder, and he told me about Code. So they're a UK-based progressive black metal band, I guess is a good way to describe it. It kind of reminded me of Akakaka in some ways. There's a lot of different things going on here, you know, particularly in the realms of black metal. I hadn't really heard all that much, which sounds like what they're trying to kind of do on here. So one of the things, you know, if you're into the more sort of progressive angle of black metal, I think you might really enjoy having a listen to this. Now we go to possibly the kings of black metal, which is Darkthrone, and they've got a new album out that I think has gotten quite a lot of people angry. So it's hard to believe that this is their 19th album, but Eternal Hails is a record which is, I think it's about 5 tracks long. It's a lot more doom-oriented. You can hear that influence of the 70s, like Black Sabbath, for example. And I also really like the sort of sci-fi album cover. But then I guess that's probably a testament as to why I thought this album was quite interesting, because for me, the traditional black metal stuff, it can get a little bit boring. So I really enjoyed this album. You know, I thought it was great riffs, and it's really well put together. I'd also love to see what you guys think in the comments, because I know this is quite, you know, a sort of contentious album. So let me know. So this is kind of a different kinds of band, you know, it's more in the realms of dissonant metal. It features members from Weeping Saw's Piron, I think that's how you pronounce it, and Glorious Depravity. So, you know, the kind of disgusting riffs are pretty much the name of the game here. But for me, it was kind of the more psychedelic experience that you kind of get from that, and it can be quite, you know, full on to listen to at times, but you know, it's very rewarding when you do kind of persevere with it, and that's out on WILLOWTIP Records. So then we've got Interloper with Search Party. So Interloper were a band, again, I'd never heard of. I believe that this is their debut album, and it's made up of various members from other bands, but very strong progressive metal here. I wasn't kind of too sure about the vocals, I have to say, but they've definitely grown on me, and I thought the cleans were really interesting, and the guitar work, you know, kind of does really, really well. So that was definitely a big surprise. And finally, we come to Fractal Universe and the Impassable Horizon. So this is a deft meld of progressive, technical, black metal, I guess, maybe. It's a concept album which is essentially about death and humanity's, or humans' perception of it. And it looks, you know, towards the more psychological aspect of death and how we deal with our existence basically being finite, which is always my kind of cup of tea. I also had no idea that Vince Wilquin, who is the main kind of guy behind all of this, he's the singer, the guitarist, and the saxophonist. He started playing saxophone in 2019, and he's on this album like a lot. So, you know, high praise to that, because it sounds brilliant, and it sounds like he's, you know, been able to play this for years. Let me know what you think of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks again, as ever, to all of the people that support me on my Ko-fi account. If you did want to, there's a link right underneath me. And other than that, I'll see you guys very, very soon. Take care, my friends.